What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shred Show Live. I can't tell you how excited I am because, ladies and gentlemen, the appraisal world continues to evolve, continues to change, and we have innovators like Class Valuation and Fannie Mae that are bringing us the best of the best information so we can continue to be the professionals. We can continue to guide our consumers in the way that they should be. We're going to have a brilliant conversation. I'm joined by Scott Rose, by Lyle, and Justin. Guys, let me tell you what, if you haven't heard these guys, I heard them on a recent webinar and I was like, my mind was blown. I've been in this industry for a long time, but what we're about to share with you is going to help you dominate the industry in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Are you ready? It is time to shred. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shred Show Live. I'm so excited to be bringing back, you all seen him, you love him, Scott Rose from Class Valuation, Chief Innovation Officers hanging out with us. Plus, we got two Fannie Mae. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know the best who's making the rules, who's helping us and guiding us, we've got Justin and Lyle joining us from Fannie Mae this morning, which I am very excited to have their expertise and knowledge on this one. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Shred Show.
Hey, Josh, good to see you, man.
Morning.
Always good seeing everybody. Excited to have Lyle and Justin on, two new friends that I've recently been acquainted with. And let me, guys, we're going to dive right into this because this is something that is so hot within our industry, desktop appraisals. You may have heard it, you may not understand it, but we're going to be answering your questions. We're going to be guiding you through this, and we're going to have some fun with it. Before we dive into it, though, before we get too far into it, Scott, we've had you on the show. Everybody knows your background, but just real quick for those who may not know you, give your quick introduction.
I'm Scott Rose. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Class Valuation. So I get to work on all things appraisal modernization, really with our friends at Fannie, both here on the webinar today and others, and trying to improve the experience for all of our stakeholders.
You are the man. Always good having you back on the show. Justin Alexander, excited to have you on the show as well. For those who may not know you, give a little introduction to yourself.
Sure. Justin Alexander, Director of Collateral Strategy and Innovation with Fannie Mae. I've been with Fannie Mae for about 2.5 years. I'm a real estate appraiser by trade. I've worked for lenders. I've worked for vendors, and just happy to be a part of the team here. So thank you for allowing me to join.
Excited to have you here. And last but certainly not least, Lyle, and I'm going to try to do your last name. Is it Radke? Did I say it right? Radke?
Pronounce the E, Radke.
Dang it, I was so close, Lyle. I almost had it. Radke. He's rad. He's hanging out with us this morning. We're excited to have Lyle. For those who may not know you, you're the veteran of us all. You have the most expertise and knowledge, so we're excited to have you. Give a little background on yourself.
Yeah, so I could go on about myself all day, right? When I was in college, I started in an engineering major, and I didn't like it. And I was a year into school, and I'm like, how do I get out of school in 3 years with a new major? And I found one that had the fewest number of class requirements. It was geology. And so I took a geology class, and that geology class was we took a field trip to the Grand Canyon. And I'm like, I love this. This is what we're doing for class, right? So I became a geologist. But when I graduated from college, I went on and got a master's degree. As I exited college, we were right in the middle of a national recession, and asset prices for gold and oil and other, things that geologists are economic drivers of geology were all poor or low at the time. So I'm doing odd jobs. I got a master's degree. I'm doing odd jobs. I'm trying to find myself. My wife said, you need to get a real job. And she fixed me up with her uncle, who was an appraiser. And so I thought, well, it's kind of similar to geology in a certain sense. You kind of go out to the property and you collect your information, and then you go back and you write a report, and you analyze the data and write a report. So very similar conceptual flow, right? And all you have to do is learn the new tools and learn the specifics of the trade, so to speak. So I dived into that, and man, I loved it. And I've been doing it ever since.
I can legitimately say that, Lyle, this is the first time I've ever had a geologist on the show. So I'm even more excited now that we've got a geologist hanging out with us this morning that can help us dive into desktop appraisals. So, gentlemen, let's dive into this. Let's talk about this. You know, this has kind of been the buzz topic going around our industry. I know each of you have been on other webinars and been discussing this, but I have been in quite a few groups or quite a few discussions recently, and I still think there is this misnomer, this misconception of what are desktop. I even had somebody go as far this morning in one of the groups, compared them to an AVM. Like, oh, like what, you know, AVMs and desktop appraisals, they're the same thing, Josh. Like, there's no big difference. Like, Scott, let's open this up. Let's open Pandora's box here and let's really define. Let's start to really help all of our mortgage professionals and our mortgage family. What is a desktop appraisal?
I'll go ahead and get started, and Lyle and Justin can fill in a little bit and keep me honest here. The reality is, to most folks who are used to and accustomed to viewing appraisals, it's going to look and feel very much the same as a full traditional 1004 report. It just has, differing scope of work and limiting conditions and certifications that allow the appraiser some flexibility to go out and find data and information, or have information provided them to use at their desktop to understand the property's physical characteristics without having to physically go view the property themselves. So, but to most general, end users, it's going to look and feel very much the same. It is not an AVM, and it is still an appraiser developing an opinion of value in a very credible fashion. So, Lyle and Justin, I don't know if you want to add to that or give it a little bit more depth there.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll say this. There's a misconception that appraisals are somehow property inspections, right? And that's actually false. If you look at the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, how appraisers define themselves, what an appraisal is and what an appraiser does, it's value. They determine the value of the property. Now, in order to determine the value of the property, it is necessary to have a description of the property. But the description or, generating the description of the property is not appraisal practice. That's something else. Appraisers do that. They do that out of necessity because in many cases, kind of detailed information hasn't been available historically. But it's not actually appraising. It is inspecting, and it's a different thing. So a desktop appraisal it's an appraisal. It's an appraiser setting aside all the baggage of all the other things that appraisers have to do in order to get to where they can actually do an appraisal. And it's focusing on doing an appraisal, valuing the property. That's what a desktop appraisal is. Is appraiser sitting at his desk, doing what they do best, analyzing information and concluding what the value is from that analysis.
Okay, Lyle, you just said something, and Justin, I want you to kind of expand on this, because this is another question that I saw in our group was people are saying, well, no, appraisers are no longer involved with this process. Justin, that's just not true. Appraisers are actually, they are the ones doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are the ones doing everything that Lyle just described. They are collecting the data, not physically, they're not out at the property, but they are collecting the necessary data to pull together and put together the valuation. And as Scott alluded to, it looks and feels the exact same as the 1004 appraisal.
Okay, so let's kind of move on as we start to open this up. Why did the desktop appraisal come to be? Was it a broken system? A lot of the questions I saw in these conversations was, well, what was wrong? Like, what's wrong with the current appraisal process? Why did desktop appraisals come to be? Scott, let's start with you again, then we can kind of work around.
I think there's a multitude of reasons. Maybe the one most apparent is the capacity in our marketplace and working to ensure we're leveraging the appraiser with their highest and best use of their time. Is that best time sitting behind a windshield, driving from property to property? Is it dragging a tape to measure, the property when they're there, take photos and images of the property? And as Lyle mentioned, what's really important to the appraisal process is just understanding those physical characteristics of the property, not necessarily having to physically be there to gather those. So when we can help, the marketplace, and there's some things we can talk about a little bit more in terms of how this is really the beginning of opening up some really big opportunities for our industry going forward. And it'll take the support of multiple stakeholders for us to really get there to capitalize on that. in terms of ensuring the right information is available for the appraiser at the time of list. And maybe some ways we can supplement that today until we get there. But it's really about focusing the appraiser's highest, best use of their time. They can earn more with their time, and we can address more appraisals in the marketplace with the amount of appraisers we have available to us today.
Lyle, let's kind of add on that, and kind of what even Justin was alluding to here as well. It is helping with the efficiency of appraisers. Again, that's something that we've all talked about. We've all seen in our industry. That was a huge bog, as 2020 and 2021 with the refi boom, and with appraisals, taking, some cases 30 to 45 days, as we saw in some marketplaces. This is ultimately to simplify and to streamline the process, correct?
So there's a great, interesting balancing act that we're trying to do here. From the GSE perspective, we're securing mortgage credit risk on a $3 trillion plus portfolio, and the home, the collateral, is the anchor to our security, right? If anything goes wrong, if that loan doesn't get repaid, then ultimately the home is going to be sold to repay the loan. So we want to ensure that values are accurate and supported, right? It's intrinsic to our business model that we have to get a good value. That said, to Scott's point, we have experienced, our own version of supply chain issues in the appraisal space, where in some markets, in some cases, they've been hard to get. Sometimes turn times have been prolonged, and in a lot of cases, so I'll speak to you as an appraiser. In the normal flow of business, as I would receive appraisal orders, there are some where you look at them and you say, gravy, this one's going to be easy. And there are others where you go like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a nightmare. And then there's everything in between, right? The fact is, some of that gravy, you're wasting everybody's time. The lender already knows the answer. The GSE already knows the answer. The appraiser already knows the answer. It's self-evident because of what we know about the marketplace. There's a lot of data information out there. So what can we do to eliminate some of that low-hanging fruit and really focus the appraiser on the stuff where we most need that appraiser's special expertise? And that's what this is all about.
Ooh, this is a really good segue, because I potentially, and again, from some of the discussions I've been in, there are some potential hurdles and maybe some roadblocks or maybe some bumps in the road that we could possibly see. And Lyle, you just hit on one in particular, verifiable property data, talking about floor plans, talking about this and that. Scott alluded and kind of spoke about, the days of an appraiser going out with their tape measure, but what potential hurdles can we expect and again, this is a relatively new thing. This is continuing to develop and to improve, but what hurdles can we expect, or should we be anticipating as the desktop appraisal is still continuing to kind of roll out? Justin, I can see you want to speak, so I'm gonna let you go with it.
No, I wanted to go back to your last point just real quick, and why the desktop, why now?
Yeah.
There's never been a point in history when data has been available like it is today. Back when I was appraising 15 years ago, we didn't have Google Maps. We didn't have a lot of these sophisticated technologies that produce data that allow the appraiser to sit at their desk and do this. And yeah, there are some hurdles. I think the big one that everyone recognizes is the floor plan. And that's, we expected that when we had many conversations internally about, this desktop product, and we did expect that to be an issue, but we also think that there's technologies out there that are being developed. Scott and his team have one of them, but we think these technologies can develop a creditable and reproducible floor plan. So we expect, over time, we expect realtors and agents to start to include these types of things as part of the listing, so that they can experience a more streamlined appraisal process if it does go the desktop path.
100%. And Scott, to that point, Justin mentioned technology, class valuation continues to innovate in the ways that they do. Data has never been more readily available. We talk about that data is everything these days. And data is so, with the technologies that are being created and the information that's out there, it is helping with the process, but in particular, class is really helping with that innovation and that data side.
100%. And, Justin touched on it a little bit in terms of some of these requirements. They're actually long-term very beneficial to our industry. And right now there's a lot of inconsistency around data around property. And as we advance with these more modern technologies and how we capture floor plans, GLA, bedroom, bath counts, and understand the property itself, the physical characteristics using technologies, it starts to create a source of truth where you get a consistency. You send 5 different people out to the property and you get the 5 same results using these tools. And when we apply these tools to the front end now, like Justin was just saying, and real estate agents and others learn that they can use this not only to support the appraisal process, but maybe enhance their listing experience and how they market the property and use it for lead gen tools and things of that nature. It all kind of ties together, but it allows us to have more reliability upon that data and leveraged in a more virtual environment in a consistent and more broad fashion as the industry adapts. And a lot of these tools, some of them are being used today in listings. They've been more custom and higher end listings, and there are tools now that are more affordable, like what we offer, that allow them to apply across a more broad spectrum of listings and really improve everyone's experience in that process when that data is being captured further upstream. So, right now, we can deliver an appraisal on average in our hybrid process when we're collecting data. By the time when we send that data to the appraiser, it's a day and a half on average right now in terms of getting returned appraisals. So imagine a purchase world where you're waiting 24 to 48 hours to get appraisals back instead of 2 to 4 weeks.
I think we all look forward to those days for sure. Seeing those, we all hear about quick turn times. We're excited for those. But Lyle, this goes to the point that Scott was making too, is the desktop appraisal is all about improving the process. And to this point that we're talking about, yes, there are going to be hurdles, but at the end of the day, that's with any new technology, with any new service or product that comes available, there's always a little bit of hurdles, but in essence, we're trying to solve for a problem that was already created.
Well, yes, that's part of this, right? Is that when we look at repeat appraisals on the same property over time, what we find is that the descriptions don't always match. The conclusions sometimes don't align. You get different outcomes, and so this reduces confidence in the appraisal process and in the appraiser profession. So we want to try to get to a point where the appraisal is verifiable. It's transparent. It's accurate. It's repeatable. You send 2 or 3 different appraisers and you get the same answer every time because the process is that precise, right? And so this will help. This is in order to do a desktop appraisal, you have to get some reliable data sources. And the more that we can invest in reliable descriptive data generation, the better the appraiser is going to be in consuming that information.
Which that's what it's getting the most accurate, up-to-date information. And again, technology is helping with that. Real quick question that came in from Melissa Diaz. I think this is great, and I'd love to not spend a ton of time, but is VA appraisals eligible for desktop appraisals? So is that something that is available? That's a good question. I don't know myself. Are VA appraisals eligible for desktop appraisals?
Well, Fannie Mae is not VA, so I can't answer that question.
Yeah,
Scott?
Today, the main 2 entities that are driving desktop appraisal is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae.
Awesome. And that's exactly
uncertain where everyone else will go. Yeah.
I was going to say, there you go, Alyssa. That's a great question.
Who's Freddie Mac?
Freddie who? Freddie who? Great question, Alyssa. We always appreciate questions coming in. Guys, if you do have questions about desktop appraisals, you are more welcome to throw them in the comments. And again, if they're relevant to the conversation, we'll throw them in there. But with that,
Josh,
yes, sir.
Just real quick to add on what Lyle was saying, and I think it's important for the folks that, the audience that we're speaking to today to understand. We talked about pitfalls with these desktops and the potential there. The opportunity is big for all of us, and what we want to ensure is that we don't lose sight of the downstream potentials with these products and solutions. And today, there is ways where the process can be supplemented at Class Valuation. We have our own process in terms of how we're going to support this for our appraisers to ensure we're able to capture this data, get it, and they have everything they need to derive credible results. There's other solutions out there as well, but just making sure that you have the right process in place to ensure you have everything that you need and that the partners that you're working with are able to provide that for you. as the industry works to adapt to start collecting this on a more readily available basis at time of list.
Oh, I love it. And kind of, I mean, right along with that, that's what as we kind of start to wrap this up and talk about a little bit more of the future of this, what are the long-term benefits? Because I know a lot of people are asking, and it seems like, in the mortgage industry, we go through these changes. I think the one constant that we can all agree on in this industry is change. Things are always evolving. Companies are innovating, which is a great thing for us as mortgage professionals. We in turn can help our consumers. But what are the long-term benefits that you gentlemen are seeing this? What's the long-term benefit of the desktop appraisal, and maybe some thoughts on the future policies and modernization that's happening in the appraisal process? Let's start with you, Justin. Let's go reverse on this one. So let's start with you with that.
Well, there's a finite group of appraisers, and that population is not growing significantly. So, this is a step in the direction of trying to create a little bit more capacity in the system. I think this is the start. This is not the finish. We do see, we've talked about it publicly in our response to FHFA's RFI, that we believe that there is a place for evaluation spectrum of options based on loan level risk. And so desktop is one of those options. We're also testing out a hybrid appraisal. We're testing out inspection-based waivers. So there's more to come on this, but we think the desktop is a step in the right direction.
That's why Fannie continues to lead the way, right, Justin? They continue to innovate. They continue to look at all solutions and options out there. So, Lyle, to you on this one as well. What is the future policies? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to as the desktop appraisal continues to evolve? What are the long-term benefits of this?
Yeah, I think I'll point backwards just a little bit. So we used a desktop appraisal as a solution during the COVID pandemic, and particularly at the very beginning of the pandemic, nobody really understood how contagious or how dangerous this disease was, and the idea of providing for social distancing in the appraisal process, of allowing liquidity in the marketplace, or ensuring liquidity in the mortgage marketplace, which is Fannie Mae's mission. That's our charter. That's what Congress has told us we have to do, is ensure liquidity in the mortgage market at all times. That includes during pandemic times, right? So how do you accomplish that without getting your appraisers killed if they're in a dangerous situation? And the desktop appraisal is one way to help with that. So we had a desktop version for COVID, and we learned a lot from that. We used that for about 15 months. And a couple of things that we learned are that, for one thing, we observed that on about 1/3 of those desktop appraisals, the appraiser provided some sort of a sketch or a floor plan, even though we didn't ask for one. And so we felt like that was encouraging. That suggested there's some capabilities out there that would help with this. And then at the same time, we saw technology companies like Class Valuation and many others who step forward with new ideas to help support the appraisal process with gathering data from a distance or remotely, or using new technology or new techniques. So these things started to come together, right? And we started to think about, we also looked at QC. How did these loans perform? How did these appraisals perform? How accurate were they? And we saw good results, encouraging results. So we started to think about this as a long-term option. Can we use what we've learned from the pandemic to really make the industry more efficient, and to start to bring in some of these new, more efficient technologies? They're not only more efficient though, but they're more accurate. So what I mentioned earlier about measuring a house, when appraisers measure a house, some of them are great. I like to think I did it right, but it's not always consistent. And in some cases, they don't do it great. We've seen some where they didn't do a great job of measuring the house. When you use technology to do that, theoretically, you can always get it right. And that's really appealing to us as a risk management company.
Well, that's just one thing too. And I know that's one thing that I've heard, Lyle, is a lot of people like, well, this just, is this helping with fraud? Is this hurting us with more fraud? That was something that's been discussed. This is something that ultimately, as homeowners, as all of us who are homeowners and who value the valuation of our property and the equity that we own in this actually helps with protecting against fraud instead of the opposite. Right, Scott?
Absolutely. What I was going to say for us, we've really focused around the idea and the concept of applying advanced technologies to this process and getting to a source of truth around property data. And that property data can support a multitude of these hierarchy that Justin was talking about. Data and waiver, data and desktop, data and hybrid, whatever those solutions may look like. And we know through our experience, we've done over 10,000 hybrid appraisals to date, and we see an exorbitant improvement in quality of appraisals when we collect property data in this fashion. Huge reduction in revision rates from our customers to us. Approximately 80%, and around 50% reduction from us to the appraiser. So that also takes out a lot of friction from the system. It creates more quality. And oftentimes when fraud was something that was in the process, most often the appraiser would misrepresent the subject property. And when you take that out of their control to be able to do that, you're definitely offering more fraud mitigation, and they're actually basing their opinions on the data that's been provided to them. And with technologies, it's extremely transparent, it's extremely comprehensive, and it's extremely accurate. So it makes it really hard to change the outcome when it's that much transparency in the system.
The worst fraud that we've seen is really organized across a group of perpetrators. And so when you bring in additional people, that actually makes the fraudster's task harder. Now they've got to coordinate across more controls and more counterparties. And it's like anything else. It's hard to keep a secret, right? So we really think that by diversifying the data sources that it does provide some mitigation against the organized fraud. Now, at a loan level, can you still have, individual parties who take advantage of this? Sure. But that's always going to be the case no matter what process you settle on.
And I think to all of your points here, that's exactly with utilizing the data, the technology available. Not only is this making a more secure and more sure way of getting valuations for homes, but in the future, as things continue to evolve, it's just better for the consumers, it's better for us as mortgage professionals, it's better for us as executives in the space, lenders, vendors, whoever we may be. This is better. This is opening the door, new opportunities, and new streamline, which we're all excited. Scott mentioned the day we can have 24 to 48 hour turn times on appraisal. We all look forward to those days, especially as our purchase market here in the U.S. continues to ramp up. So some things that we're all excited for. And guys, this has been an absolutely brilliant conversation. And hopefully all those listening today, we have started to help educate and answer. We want to guide you on this. That's why we were so very grateful for class and for Fannie Mae and for Justin and Lyle and Scott to join us, because again, as mortgage professionals, as we better understand these elements of what we do day in and day out, we can in turn educate our consumers. We can help them with this process. And to everybody's point here, we can simplify it. We can make it more sure and a more secure process for the entire mortgage industry. So guys, I really appreciate all of you, for Justin, Lyle and Scott, coming in out and hanging out with us today and sharing everything that you guys have.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
And guys, with that, one thing we do want to make sure that while every effort has been made to ensure the reliability of the session content, Fannie Mae's selling and servicing guides and their updates, including guide announcements and release notes, are the official statements of Fannie Mae's policies and procedures. Fannie Mae's official statements supersede in the event of any discrepancies between the information this presentation has provided and the guides. That was a mouthful, guys. I got it on my first try, so we nailed it. But everything you have heard today has been absolutely brilliant, so we appreciate again these gentlemen joining us today and sharing their expertise and knowledge. It has been incredible, and I know you have learned something. I know I have learned something. I'm looking forward to the future of our industry, and ladies and gentlemen, that's why we continue to bring you this show every single day. We want to educate you. We want to entertain you, but more than anything, we want to help you become a better mortgage professional. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we appreciate you. We love you. Now it's time for all of you guys to go shred, go show up, hustle, repeat every day. See ya.